JT here. Welcome to the huddle. The huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. It's to learn more about their journey to greatness. Why do I have these conversations? Because success always leaves clues. I want to take a moment to thank you. Whether you are tuning in live as we stream into our Facebook community, whether you are watching the replay on YouTube or on Facebook, or whether you're simply listening to the audio on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me and my special guest today. And here's my reminder to you. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's wide open. My challenge to you is to go all in on this conversation, to remove any distractions, and I guarantee you, you will gain a valuable nugget that will not only help you succeed in sport, but more importantly, in the game of life. I am enthused for this conversation today. Today, I decided to switch it up. I had a coaching colleague and teaching colleague that once said, variety is the spice of life. So we're gonna switch it up. We're gonna add some spice to our lives today. Today is about you, and as I've mentioned numerous times in all of my conversations in the huddle, an important thing in the game of life is it's not only about studying and observing what successful people do. It's about studying how they think. And the most powerful change that any of us can tap into is the ability to change the way this thing is operating. Because really, at the end of the day, what you really have control over, and the only thing you have control over, is the ability to choose your next thought. And it's a gift we've all been given. It's the gift of free will. So today, I wanted to just share with you 3 simple ideas that I discovered while running my first marathon a few weeks back. And these were, simple lessons that, yes, they helped me succeed in achieving my goal to run my first marathon, but they are applicable to creating success in any area of your life. So let me share with you these 3 simple ideas today. So the first idea I want to share with you is this idea of motivation versus inspiration. And I'm sure that many of you that have listened to the huddle, many of you that have been following this journey know that I'm big on words. Like, words are powerful, right? And I do my best to be very intentional with the words that I use, right? Because the words you use ultimately create your reality. So in personal growth and self-development, there's a lot of this talk about, motivation. And coming from the world of sport and athletics, for the last 35 plus years, I've noticed, right, that motivation is a buzzword. Where you then have this idea of inspiration, right? Like, and that is another word that gets often used in sport. So my question to you And again, I want to challenge you to stop, to go all in on the question I'm about to ask you, and just allow this idea, this question to sit with you for a moment. What is the difference between motivation and inspiration? And if you're watching with us live, what I would love to hear is, if you're open to it, share it in the comments. What's that idea? And I would really challenge you to think again, what's the difference? Motivation versus inspiration. And just to share with you a story on here, this marathon allowed me to get greater clarity around this idea for myself. So let's back up here. I'll give you some context here. I declared that I was going to run a marathon 2 previous times to this last time where I actually ran it in Niagara. And it's been an interesting journey. And for me, why it's been interesting is running is something that I dabbled in for a couple of years. But, once I left teaching, it's only been in the last, 2-3 years where I've really fell in love with the process of it. And it was interesting that during those declarations, I'm all about big goals, right? I'm a dreamer. I love putting big ideas out there and getting after it, right? Like that's something that I love. But it was interesting that the 2 previous times that I had said, I'm going to run a marathon, and I declared, I let some other people know, because that's what they tell you to do in personal growth and self-development, right? Find accountability partners, declare these big goals to other people, right? So it holds you. And it was interesting that as soon as I did it, there was this temporary hit of, oh, okay, yeah, I've let other people know. Great. This is amazing. But interestingly, in the process of starting the actual training, the physical training, the getting out and putting in the reps and sets, getting in the kilometers and miles to train my physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that the training, something flipped in my head where all of a sudden running became a have to and not a get to. So I noticed that the joy, right? That feeling of, oh my goodness, I get to get out for a run and get out in nature and get some fresh air, move my body and feel right, slowly started to wither away, right? And it took me a few times to understand that all of a sudden, the idea of getting out for a run it just felt heavier. It was like, why am I doing this? And I really use this as an opportunity to realize that, right? Success leaves clues. And it works in the other way. So if I'm not being successful, then there's some clues there. And it was from this where I really started to challenge myself to, why do you want to run a marathon? And it took those 2 public declarations and ultimately me not following through on them, where I realized that the idea of training for a marathon in a traditional sense just zapped the joy out of it for me. It felt like it became it felt a lot heavier. It was something I didn't really want to do. And it challenged me to actually unpack my motivations. And what I got from it after sitting with it, challenging myself to feel the discomfort and really going within, was that one, part of my motivation to run the marathon was to tell other people that I had ran a marathon. So again, I was chasing the opinions, the validation from others to say that this was a good goal for me. So I first had to take that responsibility that I was motivated for reasons that were outside of myself. So right there, I had set myself up in a position to not make it as easy. Second, I once I became aware that the thoughts, the opinions of others were a motivator, right? And again, it's not good or bad. It just is, right? We all as human beings have this part of us that wants to seek out the validation of others, that wants to feel seen, heard, and appreciated. And it's not about judging ourselves for it, but it's just about just embracing this, right? Just being able to observe it and celebrate it. So from that, I first had to get some clarity around that and understand that the motivation wasn't going to work for this. Running it for other people was not going to bring me any joy, was not going to make me want to get out and put in the kilometers, to put in the reps and sets, to get out for a run every day. So from there, I had to get clarity on what it is that I actually wanted through this running this marathon. And what I started to understand was I just love running. I just love the process of getting out and getting out in nature, just moving my body, right? It's the athlete mindset. Physically moving, challenging my body. That allows me to connect to my joy. So that was the first thing. And then two, I said, what do you really want out of this, JT? I just wanted to finish the marathon. You know, again, I'm a dreamer. I'm big goals. I love pushing myself to see, what's possible for me in my life, as a way to inspire others to push themselves to their edges. and it was from there where I thought, you know what, I just want to finish a marathon. And the interesting part is it's very counterintuitive, right? Because we live in a world that says, okay, how quickly do you want to run it? And that part, I can go there very easy. But part of this long life growth journey is about understanding that it's about challenging yourself to grow in areas that maybe don't come as easy. So for me, it was really about detaching from that, goal. It was again falling in love with the process here. So I said, I just want to run. I want to finish the marathon. Hey, here's where I think I could run. I'm taking a guess on the time. I've never ran that far before, right? I think previously I just ran over like half of the distance. So I was taking an educated guess. But from that process, it allowed me to understand just the process of just finishing a marathon, the process of getting out for a daily run as a way to, be proactive with my wellness, the ability to do something, just connect to my joy, because there's something about moving my body and challenging myself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, doing something that athletes do. It was where the joy was. So it really shifted my idea of thinking less in terms of like routine, structure, rigidity, right? It has to look this way, to where I started to realize that running, when I'm most connected to my joy of running, it's about a ritual. It's simply about getting out and connecting to a feeling, right? And it's through that getting out for a run. Anyone that's ever been active, anyone that's had a good workout knows it's not necessarily about the reps and sets you put in. It's that feeling of that you get of joy when you just getting into your body and connecting there and just feeling the peace that comes from being here and now. So it really got me to saying that you have to identify, and I go back to this idea, one of my favorite quotes by Earl Nightingale, that talked about success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal or goal. For me, I needed to move away from this motivation of seeking validation from things outside of me, whether it's the thoughts, the opinions of others, running a certain time, running anything that is measured externally. Again, it's a delicate dance. I needed to move to this sense of inspiration where it needed to come from within, right? I needed to learn that I need to get clarity on what my goals were for running it. That was simply about finishing the marathon. That was about falling in love with getting outside every day and connecting to my joy, getting outside for the mileage. And that allowed me to actually get out, to feel inspired to get out and train every day. So it was a great process on this idea of shifting to less hustle and grind, which I could do. Get a t-shirt, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, ready to go, to where it was more about the flow. It's about just being in the moment. So that was the first lesson. The difference between motivation. It's very easy to be motivated by things outside of you, where inspiration is getting clarity on what intrinsically motivates you, what gets you out of bed, where's your energy, where's your enthusiasm, where's your passion from. So I encourage you, what inspires you right now? What area of your life do you feel inspired to create some new and different results in? And if you feel open to sharing, share in the comments. 2, okay? So again, first idea, motivation versus inspiration. Second one idea that's really been around my head the last, I'd probably say year and a half, is this idea of like releasing this illusion of perfection and embracing imperfection. And I've shared numerous times that this came from a great coach or mentor that challenged me during a very difficult time where, I was experiencing, a lot of feelings of frustration around specifically in my business at the time. And he challenged me by asking me a question about sport and bring it back to something that I knew that was that I understood, that I felt calm and confident in sport. And he gave me this analogy. I'll give it to you again, where he just said to me, and maybe I'll challenge you with this question, is when you are coaching, does every play go as planned? So I challenge you. Does every play go as planned when you are playing or coaching? The answer is no. So then he challenged me by saying, so why do you try to apply it to other areas of your life? So I'm asking you, in what areas of your life are you holding on, clutching to this idea of this illusion of perfection? Again, it's not good or bad. It's not positive or negative. It just is. And it's understanding that this illusion of perfection has been programmed, it's conditioned to us as we've been grown up, right? It was reinforced to us when we were in school and we were at this idea of our worth was determined by an arbitrary mark out of 0 to 100 on a test, right? And then it might have gone into your worth, right? How you measured yourself in the world was determined by a number on a scoreboard. Then became the number of zeros in your bank account, and so on and so on. But it's just understanding that this idea of perfection is just an illusion, right? You'll never be perfect. And what I've learned from my lived experience here is that when I fall into those illusions of perfection, and it still happens today, right? It's a game, right? Life's a daily practice. I realize how stuck that can feel. And what I've really learned in the process is this idea of like embracing imperfection. It's going back to that coaching analogy, because again, being a high level athlete and coach, working with high level athletes and coaches, that's where it is. We'll get up, we'll put in the work, right? We can easily, like, it's not a question of feeling energized, enthused, or passionate and willing to get up and do the work. But it's learning how to sort of navigate the ebbs and the flows of the journey, right? Tide comes in, tide goes out, right? Just the rhythm of any journey to greatness. And for me, again, going back to this marathon, it was the idea, like, I had like this illusion of perfection of I'm going to run this marathon, right? That I'm going to run this length of time, this distance of run, right? Over 42 kilometers, and I'm just going to run it the whole time. I'm not going to stop. And even just that idea was right there again, a little easy way of this illusion of perfection to come out. So I had to let go of this idea that I'm going to just run straight for 42 kilometers and not stop. Right? And it was embracing the fact that, I am going to stop. I may have to stop for a nature break. I'll probably have to stop for a nutrition break to refuel. So I actually have the energy to do it. And then just this idea, and there was another one that popped up, which we'll talk about in a little bit, where again, it was this idea of like imperfection. Like, it's not about just, yeah, you have this goal of here, but again, it's going to ebbs and flows, right? Yeah, you'll do your best in the moment and then something will pop up. That's okay. It's just ebbs and flows. Not good or bad, not positive or negative, it just is. So I needed to release this illusion that it was just going to be a straight 42.2 kilometer run with no stops, no breaks, no adversity, no challenges, no obstacles. And it was interesting. And it wasn't until the last few, they talk about this time where you hit the wall in a race. Right? And again, hitting the wall hits different people. For me, it came up at a time where near the tail end of the race, I'd probably say the last 20% of the race, where I had thoughts of, I just need to call. I just need to call my wife. I need to get her to come pick me up. I'm done. I'm throwing in the towel. I'm quitting. And for some of you, you might go, oh, you actually felt like going? Absolutely. Right? I understood that there was going to be times of the race where the inner critic, right? Which again is not my pro, it's just, we all have that inner critic that's been, programmed and conditioned into us. Started to talk all kinds of smack to me. And from there, it took me to sort of get into this practice of practicing what I preach, right? Because that's what great leaders do. Great leaders only preach what they are willing to consistently practice themselves. So it was in those last few kilometers where I heard the chatter about, hey, just quit. You've ran X number of kilometers. This goal of running a marathon isn't that big to you. There's no, and again, it's really sly. It's really covert. It's really sneaky sometimes. That old programming, right? That wants you to play small in the game of life. And then what actually got me through to the end was I actually had an image of my kids come up. My wife and kids had joined me in Niagara for the marathon. And I asked them, okay, so let's think and act from the goal achieved. You finished the race. What are you going to tell what would you tell your kids? Like, if you did quit, was it because you weren't able to do it? Or did you take the easy way out? What would you tell your kids? And what happened for me in that moment was I ask my kids every day, what are you committing to? and they talk about best effort and attitude, that they are going to go +1. We call that +1 mentality in our house, right? Go a yard past what's expected of you in terms of effort and attitude. And I needed to be honest with myself and say that if you pack it in, you didn't go +1. And you need to challenge yourself to do exactly what you challenge your kids to do every single day. So it was from that inspiration of thinking about my kids, of actually practicing what I preach, that actually carried me forward for that last little bit. So my kids were actually my inspiration in that race, because I needed to show them what was possible. So I needed to let go of this imperfection. And it was from there where I need to realize the race I wasn't going to run all 42 kilometers. I was going to stop for a nature break. I was going to stop to refuel, get the water into me, get the salt, right? And make sure I actually had the fuel to finish the race. That actually propelled me forward, because it allowed me to release this unrealistic image that I created in my own mind. So it's learning to release, to let go of this illusion of perfection and embracing the imperfection, right? And that's what life's all about. So that was the second lesson. Third lesson I got from the marathon was this idea that trying or working harder, right? Just trying or working harder, is going to allow you to accomplish any goal. And let me ask you this question, because trying and working harder, I always love when I challenge people with that idea, because it's so entrenched in as a belief with many humans that you can simply just work harder, try harder. The truth of the matter is, it's often part of the problem. So let me ask you this question. If I said to you, you know what? My car, every time I drive it, it's making this like interesting noise. I feel like it's like there's this clinking, this rattling, and like things are just grinding. It just sounds every time I switch gears, or every time I hit the gas, it just sounds like something inside the car is grinding. What would you tell me to do? Would you say to me, just leave it? It's good. Just keep driving on it. Or would you tell me to, maybe it's time to go get it looked at? Bring it to a shop or bring it to a garage. Let's get some specialized knowledge to look at it, like, qualified mechanic to look at it, or someone that knows something about cars. What would you say? And I'm sure if you're watching this, the answer's very clear. You would tell me to get fixed. So my question is, if you wouldn't allow your car to grind, why do you allow this idea of grinding in your life as a badge of honor? Like, do you really want life to feel like a grind at all times? And what I'm here to share with you is, will life feel like a grind at certain times? Yes. Again, it's letting go of this illusion of perfection. Do I feel like I fall into the grind at some points? Absolutely. Human, right? My lived experiences, I used to believe, that's how I operate the majority of time. But what I'm here to share with you is there is another way to live. It doesn't have to be working or trying harder at all times. It doesn't need to be living in the hustle and grind. You can live a different way. You can live in flow, the effortless way, with more ease, with more love, with more joy, with more peace. But understand, it's a daily practice. So this idea got reinforced to me on the run. It got reinforced to me, again, going back to those last 20% of the run where, again, I felt like quitting. I felt like calling my wife. I felt like just walking the rest of the way. It came up. The chatter was loud. And it was where I made the decision here that I was at a point where I was running and my muscles were getting very tight. And we've all, I'm sure many people here, especially if you are continuing to watch this, listen to this, have been there, done that. Where your muscles feel tight, you just overuse them. What do you do to a muscle when it feels really tight? Right? You stretch it. And through stretching, what is the purpose of stretching muscles? Like what's the purpose? And the purpose is to relax the muscle, to allow it to be more flexible, to be more pliable, right? And the interesting thing is, if you take a look at the strongest, most powerful athletes, I love using track as an example. A loose muscle is a fast muscle. So if you take a look at most powerful athletes in the world, track athletes being run, sprinters, they're very loose, they're very flexible. Right? It allows them to relax. So on that last run, I needed to, again, let go of this illusion I was going to run the whole time. It wasn't going to happen that day. And it was from there where I removed myself from the course and I took a moment to stretch the muscles that were tight. I had to stretch out my hip flexors. I had to stretch out my calves, my hamstrings that were really tight from just simply working and trying harder, right? Just running more. And it was from there where that ability to stop, to slow down, to relax, to be more flexible, actually allowed me to breathe some grace and compassion, some patience with myself. That this was the only way that I was going to achieve my goal of finishing the race. So again, it was releasing this idea of just trying or working harder and understanding that simply you just, as opposed to trying to do more, it's about being more. And when you get in that practice of being more, it's amazing how much more you can accomplish in life. So those were the 3 ideas. So just to recap, it was this idea of shifting from motivation, which can very easily become externally driven, right? Things outside of you are the reason you're doing it, whether it's the opinions of others, to where you shift to feeling inspired, to allowing things inside of you to be the root of why you're doing something. So again, shifting from motivation, external, to inspiration, which comes from within. Second, there's this idea of releasing, letting go of this illusion of perfection, and embracing imperfection. Right? It's as much understanding that as much as we love warm, sunny, 25 degrees, that it's actually those days that things look a little overcast, that look a little dark and dreary and rainy, that actually allow things to grow, that allow the grass, the flowers, the trees to grow, because those are the days they get the water. And third, this idea of simply trying or working harder, aka the hustle and grind, and embracing more flow, the effortless way, or just really connecting to a deeper sense of, love and joy and peace. And it's from those three ideas that I was able to accomplish my goal of running my first marathon and completing it. And it felt amazing to finish it and run through the finish line. Interesting fact, the first thing I did actually after running through that line when Alicia and the kids came running up to me was just broke down in tears, because it was just such a emotional event. It was so good. It felt amazing. So those are the three lessons. So here's my challenge to you. As I tell you every week in the huddle, knowledge is potential power. It's the consistent and focused application of great knowledge that actually creates great results. So my challenge to you is to take one of these valuable nuggets of wisdom and go apply it to your life today. And once you do that, you will reach your next level of greatness. And as I remind you every week in the huddle, you are deserving of greatness. You are worthy of greatness. You are greatness. And my only ask for these conversations is for you to share it with a friend, a loved one, someone you care about. Because the more people we have listening to, understanding these simple ideas, the more people will be just living this blessed life. Anyways, I look forward to chatting with you next time in the huddle. Have a blessed rest of your day, and we'll chat soon.